What if I told you that in 1969, Pontiac quietly built an engine so dangerous, so brutally powerful, and so ahead of its time that they had to pretend it never existed? An engine that could have humiliated the Boss 429, destroyed the ZL1, and rewritten American muscle car history, but instead, it vanished into rumors, crushed prototypes, and whispered stories from engineers who were told to keep their mouths shut. Today, we're uncovering the truth about the Ram Air V, the most powerful and most forbidden engine Pontiac ever created, and why it died before the world even had a chance to understand what it was capable of. Picture the spring of 1969. Pontiac engineers were frustrated, embarrassed, and frankly, pissed off. Ford had the Boss 429, a giant with NASCAR pedigree. Chevrolet had the ZL1, a wild aluminum beast that barely qualified as street legal. Chrysler had the Hemi, a legend even back then. And Pontiac? They had the Ram Air 4, a good engine, a respectable engine. But in the escalating horsepower war of the late 60s, respectable couldn't win races, headlines, or bragging rights. Pontiac's performance division was tired of losing, tired of being told they couldn't compete, tired of corporate rules that favored Chevrolet. So leadership gave one order, a rare, beautiful, almost unbelievable order. Build something that shuts everybody up. No budget limits, no corporate oversight, no rules except one. Make it the most vicious, most powerful engine Pontiac had ever built. And the engineers, oh, they went absolutely feral. What they created wasn't just an engine. It was a weapon. A 400 cubic inch monster designed to attack a loophole in racing rulebooks and dominate classes where Ford and Chrysler weren't even allowed to compete. While the other big three were building huge 427s and 429s, Pontiac did something sneaky, something brilliant. They took their big 428 block and destroked it to slide under NASCAR and NHRA's 400 cubic inch limit. Suddenly, Pontiac could enter classes the others couldn't touch and win. They created a custom 4-inch bore with a 3.91-inch stroke. Everything about this engine was new molds, new machining, new engineering. But the real sorcery? The heads. Pontiac built tunnel port heads so massive you could almost slide your hand inside the intake ports. These were not modified versions of existing heads. They were radical, purpose-built, airflow-obsessed pieces of racing art. These heads flowed 325 CFM on the intake side, better than many modern race heads today. Then came the valves. Gigantic, laughably big for a Pontiac. 2.19-inch intakes, 1.73-inch exhausts. And the cam? Absolutely savage. 0.520 lift. 308 degrees of duration. At idle, the engine didn't run. It shook, snarled, and threatened to stall like a caged animal. Below 3,000 revolutions per minute, it was miserable. Above 4,500, it exploded with fury, screaming to 7,000 revolutions per minute like a small block Chevy, not a big block Pontiac. Official horsepower? Pontiac never published it, because they never officially sold it. But the engineers told the truth years later. 500 to 540 horsepower on the dyno. 575 with a tunnel ram intake. In 1969, that wasn't just impressive. That was absurd. To put it into perspective, the Hemi made 425. The Boss 429 made 375. The L88 made 430 officially, but far less in the real world. The Ram Air V was operating in a completely different universe. Pontiac built somewhere between 25 and 50 engines, maybe more. The records were intentionally muddied, destroyed, or never created. Some say 25 were built. Some say 37. One engineer claimed over 200. But here's the scary part. Most of those engines were destroyed, crushed, melted, eliminated. Why? Because in late 1969, the insurance companies declared war on horsepower. Anything making over 400 HP was blacklisted. Premiums skyrocketed. GM panicked. Corporate leadership ordered all experimental performance programs shut down immediately. Ram Air V was dead. But before the guillotine came down, a few engines escaped. Some were slipped to racers. some to friendly dealers, some to insiders with connections. And one of them, one very special Ram Air V, ended up in a 1969 Trans Am built for a Pontiac executive. That car was supposed to be crushed, but someone lost the paperwork. Decades later, it resurfaced. And when they dyno tested it in the 1990s, 30 years old, worn out, tired, it still made 485 horsepower. Not new, not tuned, not optimized, worn, aging, tired, and still nearly 500 horsepower. That tells you everything. Then came the 1969 NHRA Nationals. A Ram Air V Firebird showed up in stock Eliminator. The other racers laughed, until it ran 11.40 at 121 miles per hour on bias-ply tires. Officials were so suspicious they tore the engine apart piece by piece. And guess what? It was completely legal. Pontiac had outsmarted everyone. After that, NHRA and NASCAR rewrote rules specifically to cripple it. But rulebooks weren't the real killer. It was drivability. Let's be honest, the Ram Air V hated street life. Low RPM torque? Gone. The tunnel ports just didn't support it. The cam? Too aggressive. It fouled plugs constantly. Fuel economy? For miles per gallon on a good day. The clutch? So brutal drivers complained their left leg hurt after 20 minutes. One test driver summed it up perfectly. It's like daily driving a top fuel dragster. Everything about it hates being on the street. Because the Ram Air V wasn't a street engine. It wasn't even pretending to be. It was a race engine with paperwork. Pontiac spent nearly $2 million developing the engine. $15 million in today's money. They created new tooling, new casting molds, new machining processes. All that for maybe 50 engines. From a business perspective, madness. From an engineering perspective, a masterpiece. And that's what makes the Ram Air V so iconic. It wasn't built to please accountants, or lawyers, or executives. It was built because engineers wanted to prove they could beat anyone. Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, all of them. And they did. Today, fewer than 10 complete, original Ram Air V engines are believed to exist. A short block sold in 2019, just the block, crank, and rods for $85,000. A complete running Ram Air V engine? Worth more than most homes. An original numbers-matching car? Over 7 figures. But here's the twist. Pontiac never kept official records of which cars got Ram Air V engines. No window stickers. No broadcast sheets. If you find a real one, the only way to confirm it is casting numbers and eyewitnesses. There's a myth that some Ram Air V cars were sold to the public quietly under the radar through certain dealers. Pontiac always denied it. But one case stands apart. A 1969 Trans Am, owned by a former Pontiac engineer. He claims and has documents showing it came with a factory-installed Ram Air V. Internal memos, pilot line build sheets, a letter from John DeLorean himself. If true, it's the only documented production Ram Air V car ever sold. And Pontiac still won't acknowledge it. But here's what makes the Ram Air V truly legendary. It represents the end of an era, a moment when engineers could walk into work and say, "Let's build something insane." And management said, "Okay." It represents the freedom, insanity, and rebellious spirit of 1960s American performance. The Ram Air V was raw, untamed, unreasonable, too wild for the street, too powerful for the corporates, too rare for the public. A weapon designed for a war that ended before it began. And when those who heard one run at full throttle describe it, the language changes. The Ram Air 4, they say, sounded angry. But the Ram Air V? It sounded like it wanted to kill you. At 6,500 revolutions per minute, it made noises no Pontiac ever had before, or ever would again. Mechanical violence. Pure fury. It wasn't banned. It was abandoned. Too powerful for the world it was born into. But for a brief, glorious moment in 1969, Pontiac built the most powerful engine in its history, proved they could out-engineer anyone, and then walked away. Today, the Ram Air V remains the greatest what-if in Pontiac history. What if it reached production? What if the insurance crisis hadn't happened? What if GM had let Pontiac keep pushing? We'll never know. But those few engines that escaped the crusher, they're proof of something beautiful. Once upon a time, Pontiac engineers were completely, spectacularly insane. And thank God they were. If the story made your engine-loving heart beat a little faster, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me which forbidden engine you want covered next. And subscribe, because the wildest stories in automotive history are still waiting under the hood.